There's maybe like 5 people active in the top 50, so we work with what we got. We got some more Snake Man. And some more outside. Oh, get me out. All right, so this one, I'm intrigued to check out Antoxa. I think he's been in my channel. He was here the other day when we were talking about some of the matchups that certain people have had. Antoxa, at the time of recording, is ranked 158th in the world, which is actually very respectable. 111 games played, so not a crazy amount either. Viper, also in the meantime, has now managed to sneakily snake his way up to 55th in the world with 52 games played, 65% win rate, respectable position. It's going to be difficult to climb high against the top rankers, right? I'm not sure how the point system works in terms of how much elo you get per victory, depending on the difference in rank. The reason I think that might be important is that right now, I'm not kidding when I say less than a fifth of the accounts in the top 50 are active. And by active, I mean have played in the last 4 or 5 days. It's pretty nuts. So we've had to kind of expand the net a little bit. And I don't think it's too bad to come down to this rank. I think actually that the funny part is there's an argument that a decent amount of people that are skilled enough, because they aren't able to clash with the best of the best, they might be stuck at the 100 to 200 range right now. There's definitely a lot of familiar names I'm seeing in there, but I haven't seen Antoxa before. Curious to see what they can do. They have got what is considered a potent Civ on Altai, the English, a Civ that can easily kind of park themselves and play for that hyper late game. Meanwhile, Viper, he's gone into the HRE again. We just watched this lad play this on Altai, and he's once again going to be playing on the Civ. I would say that this to me feels like Viper's favorite Civ. I remember the early days of Age of Empires. He played a lot of HRE from what I can recall, and I think I'd be curious to know, but I think it might be his favorite Civ. Although I don't think he's favoriting these type of spawns. Ford spawn on gold. Deer are least protected, but he's got to play to the north side, right? To the backside of his base, to the berries and the woods. So can't even think about getting the gold involved. Kind of unfortunate, actually, because if the HRE weren't what they are, which is a cowardly Civ that hides underneath their TC all the time, but he could have dropped an Archon on the northeast side here, would have covered gold, wood, and then a small stack of deer. Not willing to actually forfeit that kind of ground, though, because the risk that you have is if you do that, especially against a Civ like the English, if you Lombos come in, they're going to snipe you out. They're going to block you out indefinitely. So better to take the 30% on the 30 cents on the dollar offer instead of gambling it all for $1.1 in return, but there's a chance a guy turns up with a tank and blows your face off. Yep, that's how economics work. Viper at least should get enough sheep to get him by. And Toxa, interesting choice here. Did not drop the mill on the deer. I'm not a big fan of how frequently I'm seeing this out of English players still. I do believe the optimal way to play English, especially against a Civ like the HRE, is to go on the deer to start with. Inflate your timing so you can get better mid-aggression with Feudal, and then also a quicker cast age time, which, especially in this matchup, is key to getting ahead of the problem. Looks like he's going to be rushing up with 5 villages, so definitely intent from Antoxa to build a few of these Lombos. Good idea as well. He would have scouted out the Ford spawning gold. He can potentially block Viper out of his resource bank without needing to cheese with outposts, right? That's the thing as well. Trying to outpost rush these positions is very difficult now because a villager pool comes in and 750 HP structure that takes a minute to build is not going to complete before it's torched, so 4 or 5 Lombos should achieve what Antoxa needs and should also actually force Viper to invest more into military now, which is something the HRE typically don't want to do. Like, the cool thing about the HRE is they have this great eco power, and they want to utilize that to get the quickest castle age plus timings possible, because the weird thing is that although I have argued for a while that the HRE in theory can play prolonged feudal, I don't think they play feudal better than castle. I actually think that castle offers up a much better opportunity to them, simply because if you invest all your resources, your extra 40% gathering rate in feudal, you still have this setup time that's very idled, right? Like, you usually don't have wheelbarrows, so your villagers take longer to run across to build structures. And then you don't really get a great way of initially exploiting this income, because let's say I do have an extra 40% eco, I still have to spend 30 seconds building each of the buildings, and then I have to wait behind these production times. I can't exceed those. It's not like when you say the Chinese have a great feudal timing. I think the HRE are correct in their true to form style of going castle always. It's just much better. And Antos, what did I just say that he didn't need to do? I believe I said he did not need to go for some cheeky outpost rush. Yeah, he does anyway. He's going to move in with the villagers, but I think he missed the opportunity here. If he waited for the longbow, probably gets it. Instead, he went for spears. And his longbows are chilling at home. Huh. I think someone commented, why am I casting Viper? He's not really in the game. He is in the game. He's played, I think it must be in excess of 20 games in the last 48 hours. It's a large mile. Something like that. So he's been pretty busy, guys. Like, I think he's got at least 10 to 15 games on the live server, and then he played a bunch on pop. So he is playing. In fact, this game here, I believe, was from just yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. See if Antox can turn the screws enough, though. Looks like he's going to try to wrap around. We'll chop through one of the benefits you can actually have here. And an outpost now being rushed up. And Tox, of course, only has the short bows in range because he didn't bring the long bows straight away. So Outpost will go up. Viper, he's getting very good at defending himself on this map. Short bow spam is going to come out. Problem is the Prelate. You need to target the Prelate. This doesn't work. What? What? Wait, did he toggle off healing? I mean, there's no way. Right? No, like, I don't... Oh, he was healing the scout. I mean, still, this is not good enough value for Antoxa. What you have to calculate this is it's Antoxa idling 5 villages to run across the map and do this. And he at least had wheelbarrow, so, you know, they weren't the slowest. Although I think initially at the beginning of the run, they didn't have wheelbarrow. Now, the good news, at least for Antoxa, is he has blocked out the gold, but one thing I'm concerned about, okay, luckily for Antoxa, there's no back gold spawn over here, so covering the north side will block it all out, but Viper could realistically just gather wood and food and trade for gold, worst case scenario, which I think is worth doing here. For the time being, though, he's going to be setting up the outposts. And archers are now coming out. Interesting choice. One not done very often by the HRE, but it is a solid solution here, considering you're up against spears. Yeah, to counter them out. Also has the Prelate healing. Love that detail from Viper. Just make sure that he can trade efficiently, especially with the emplacements now assisting him. Looks like the outpost should go up quick enough here. The dive a little bit ambitious out of Viper. It's going to cost him dearly. It's like both archers could have went down, but instead, Tox being a bit greedy trying to go after the Prelate. Which is, now going to have to pull back. So Viper has very limited gold, not enough to actually get himself into blacksmiths and siege engineering. Might just have to choose to go for the trade instead. Looks like he's going to prep the stables units. Now, what we have to keep in mind is while Antox has kind of got Viper by the long curlies, he also himself isn't really inflating. He's investing everything into this aggression. You can see a constant stream of troops moving across the map. Then there's also the investment of several villages on the front line, 5 in fact, as well as building 3 outposts up here. He's at least going to put them to work on the wood line to kind of offset this idle time, but overall he needs a way of getting in next. I don't think Viper is necessarily out of this game just yet. Well, this is definitely a good start in getting him out, setting up the walls on the backside. We'd love to have actually seen Antox to bring 1 or 2 Lombos out here, just try to be a nuisance on the back, but it's a long run. Oh, he's doing it anyway. Yes! I like this. Scout's going to scout it out. And it looks like there is going to be an outpost built up to defend this area because Viper, of course, was gathering the stone on the backside. But the outpost isn't really going to help you much up against the Lombos, remember. They can easily skirt the range of it and still be a nuisance and force you to keep idling. Of course, the Scout won't be able to stop those 2 Lombos either. In fact, if he tries, he's going to die. Viper still building more military. He's trying to amass a few horsemen here, but that's pricey. Instead, he's going to double down on the food. And he'll wait to reveal his choice. Slowly trying to make his way out. Looks like the villager is going to be chased away. Shivs out from the HRE, but mistakes made by Viper. He got baited by this. Lombos move in. They can't quite kill off the Villi. However, they can kill off the new ones before they can finish off the outpost. And Toxa, though, isn't paying attention. How does he get away with this? He should not have got away with that. He does need to counter out the Scout, though. Wait, and Toxa? Oh, no. Actually, in fairness, I don't mind what he's doing here. He loses a villager. If he kills the one on the other side, it's worth it. HRE villagers are worth more than English villagers. Sorry, guys. It's just the facts of life. And he gets 2 for it. So Viper will slowly break out this way, and it's really important he does because this deer. I think he needs the deer more than the stone in this area. In fact, if he can get his hands on the deer, he can get enough food to easily trade it across into gold. Or could just opt for the wood. I think the wood's the better option, but you know you're only getting about half a wood line, and then you have to move to the south side with the inferior gathering rates because the Arhan won't be in range. It looks like Viper is starting to sneak out on the south side. Problem is taking fights in this area. You're up against the attack speed buffer. So this trade to begin with is not a good one. You trade a horseman for a lombo. You need better follow-up, and that's why I think Viper realistically needed 2 to 3 horsemen here. He could have flooded through and probably killed off 4 or 5 lombos before needing to retreat. Instead, though, he's going to use his movement speed benefit to move away. Remember, the archers are quicker than both the lombos and the men-at-arms. They play at malice here. Viper, whoopsie. He hasn't got his textiles this game, and the spearman got in to give vision. Not long enough, though. Really needed to get a tanky boy in, which is why the men-at-arms, I like this play. You send in the early men-at-arms, then the outpost can see and attack. And there you go, go after him now. And no textiles this time for Viper, which is kind of surprising. He does it so frequently, but I think he got denied on the gold too quickly this game, and that was his problem. He has gone back for it now, though. What? Okay, this surprises me. I would have expected him to get this a lot sooner, considering the gold situation as it is. Very surprising choice. I'm trying to wrap my brain around what the thought was for Viper. Maybe he believed he didn't need to get it at all, that he could get away with just going castle. He has got the gold for it, by the way. He did buy in the end with the marketplace, so he's going to be making his way up with the ringlets to the backside. Problem for him in this game is relics are not easy to come by. They're blocked off, but the reason he makes the ringlets choice as opposed to the Burgrave is you don't have access to enough meat to justify the Burgrave, right? You need to have additional deer stacks as well as berries. Meanwhile, clash on the south side, though. The boy at arms working hard for the English cause here, but with limited lombos, I think the damage output shouldn't be high enough. However, Viper slip up there. Left his puller AFK in the middle of the fight, so he will go down. Army is at least going to be cleaned up, and then Toxa is nowhere near ready to tech up themselves. They instead went for a secondary TC. Not a bad choice here. But considering you've done this against the HRE, you're very much now on the clock. You just forfeited mid-map control against the Civ that needs mid-map control to survive the next 5 minutes. Probably not the most ideal choice from Antoxa. Very frustrating one for him as well, actually. I mean, he built a decent villager lead. I think the better way would have been to have doubled down, right? Like, Viper could have kept trading for gold. You could argue Knight's going to be coming out, but they're not going to be cheap if you consider he keeps clicking the sell buttons, right? Like, remember, each time you hit the sell, the return is worse, which is why you can see some of these are pitiful. Like, sell 100 food for 48 gold is not a good exchange. Oh, and Toxa having to fall back. He's at least gathering in the mid-map because he's trying to offset the farm transition, but that's now underway, and Toxa is nowhere near Castle Age. This is worrying. This does mean that Viper should easily be able to gain 3 relics in the next 2 to 3 minutes, which is good timing for him considering the aggression that came his way. He's also now shifting south side, so you can see he's just trying to get those food rates up to afford the initial knights out. Horsemen also now starting to flood out. Nice choice to actually optimize. Just go after the villagers here. They will pull out their short bows, but every time they try to attack like that, that's going to be idle time added. But you can see the nuisance of trying to go after the English with small quantities at this stage. Like, when you've got this many villagers together, even 2 horsemen don't want to be there. The logic is that your opponent will shoot the bow, and then it'll go back to gathering, and then will shoot the bow again. Because remember, if you keep switching like that, it doesn't skip the cooldown time. The logic is you can gather 1 or 2 berries before your attack comes off cooldown again. Weird choice here by Antoxa, though. I don't think he noticed that he was pushing villagers there. Did at least get textiles, and he's going to need it. Archers are on the way. Men-at-arms will be able to stand the ground, but Antoxa, the problem he has now is he has to keep investing in MAA, which means you're getting further away from Castle Age, not closer to. You have to remember that Knights are starting to come out in the meantime for Viper. He needs to push out faster because he really does need to get access to those relics. See, there's just one knight. One knight is enough to scare you away. You just don't really have the damage on your plastic swords to get through him. Instead, you're actually losing some extra men-at-arms. Oh, that should be the first relic in the center that's actually acquirable. There might be a sneak point around the north. No, he'd have to come close to the outpost too long to get this relic. So the only way that you could easily get this as Viper without taking any fire or taking out outposts is if you go all the way around the backside, which you don't want to be doing. Like getting a little bit ambitious. Viper is doing this intentionally, though. He wants to essentially buy time so the prelate can walk by, and then this knight pays for itself in the next minute. Speaking of knights, Viper now up to 3. And Toxa never looking at castle in this game. If he sets up 4 clusters of farms, he can maybe make his way up, but this is going to set him back. Knight's ready on the backside. Looks like he doesn't overreact too much to it. But you're going to need a bigger eco lead than this to feel comfortable. Only 13 ahead of the HRE, and remember how efficient they are to reach their villies. Not to mention the fact they're starting to get the relics in the wall. No way in hell does that happen. Not with the attack speed buffer there, especially. So, denies the relic for the time being. One has already been bagged. The second one's going to be coming in soon. His MAA will begin to dive in, try to idle out some eco, but the problem is they can't easily find targets. The crazy part is that he's somehow still in range of a tower, by the way. It's pretty phenomenal how close he got with these outposts. Well, it looks like he can only idle a bit of eco, can't necessarily snipe it, apart from the one idle villager that seems to be on a prolonged coffee break here. Shame on her. There's work to be done in the Empire. Second relic should be grabbed in a sec by Viper. You'd hope. However, right now, he has to invest all of his gold into the knights, so no additional prelates coming out yet. In fact, he has a second prelate somewhere. I just don't... Where the bloody hell? What? Wait, hold on. That's where he is. He went south side. And Viper is down here to set up a new TC. This will be unexpected. And this is actually a great play. A great utilization of the map by Viper. Because Antoxa is playing a slow comp. Men-at-arms, spearmen, lombos. There's no cavalry here. And Antoxa, I don't even think has a scout still. Yeah, the scout got taken out. So this is actually an informed play by Viper. He's seen a lot of info from his opponent. He's lost the scout. He's lost all cavalry potential because he's just gone full flat infantry comp. There is a very, very tiny likelihood that Antoxa comes west because he needs to get the shortest distance. Like, the issue now for Antoxa, and Antoxa has revealed his hand really in a lot of ways. Because he went on the berries, it shows that he's running out of resources, he's playing condensed, he needs to defend himself. Viper starts to hit the field with knights, and Antoxa hadn't set up walls yet, which meant that he had to park his troops in the center, and that's why Viper gets away with his secondary TC. Pretty cool. Not something you see this late either. Like, it's not typical for an HRE player to go for a second TC after Feudal Age. But I think it's actually a redeeming factor for him in this game. It's going to get a lot of value. It's going to get him more wood that he desperately needs in this situation. It's also going to secure his backside, which of course has been spent, right? He got all the stone here. By the way, that is a cool detail to highlight in this game that helped Viper a lot. When he didn't have any gold to work with, the reason he was able to be competitive with market trade is because he kept selling stone. He went on that big fat stack of 2.4k stone at the backside. That's what got him into Castle Age. It wasn't wood or food as much. It was more the stone. Now that Viper is in a stronger position, he's starting to push out. Horseman finally from Antoxa, but I think Antoxa just kind of threw away the game with this choice, actually. You need a Castle Age. You cannot compete from feudal like this. Just a few knights are going to hold him at bay, and the keep drop as well. I mean, Viper is fully in this game again. Antoxa, position looking dubious at best. Has a lot of food, so in theory should be able to afford the horseman, but because he keeps pushing everything, he's pushing his economy to the maximum. I mean, you can actually see the income here. It's 1,900 food, yet it's never growing. Because when we look at the queue for him, horseman, spearman, everything, and it's not an efficient comp for him at all. Knight's just going to push him away, barely alive, but alive enough. And now the switch up into men-at-arms. When he sees the unit comp by Antoxa, he realizes the perfect answer. It's so much easier for him to make this transition because the issue Antoxa has is Viper is teched ahead, which means each of these individual units is more impactful, right? Now, usually the potency of making these transitions is your opponent already has a majority of X or Y unit. So while you're transitioning to a unit that would counter what they have, it's going to take time for the counter to be effective, right? Like if you run 1 men at arms in against 9 Lombos, it's going to lose, right? That's the logic. You have to reach scales. The problem for Antoxa is he keeps throwing away his units. So Viper is now transitioning, but he's actually transitioning ahead of time, weirdly enough, because Antoxa has failed to take good exchanges. Viper is now securing everything back at home with just a few of the MAA, able to torch through all these outposts. Once he has access to all this extra resource, including the relics, I'm not sure what Antoxa can do. Because although Antoxa has gone for Horsemen, he's not positioned them to deal with the Prelates still trying to grab relics. This is just part of his main defense force. And now, another cool detail for Viper. Sacred Site is a win condition. The keep secures the center one, but that TC on the side doesn't just allow him to reboom. It also secures the Sacred Site. And Antoxa, once again, cannot easily just raid here and decap. If he sends the Horsemen over, they're going to get blitzed by the TC. He's going to try to send the Horsemen over now. He's going to get some bad news, though. Some news he most definitely will not like. Antoxa has finally at least saved up for Castle Age, so that's a redeeming factor for him. Also redeeming, though, is the fact you have to go White Tower here. You really would have loved to have had the King's Pass, but the problem is a lack of resource to exploit close by and a desperate need for defense. Horsemen are going to make their way in, and it looks like Viper hasn't reacted just yet. He's about to get the notification, and we'll begin the garrison here. Horsemen are going to get some value in this area, though, as there's not enough room for all the villages, and mistakes most definitely made by Viper allowing them to sneak through so freely like that. In fact, he even saw them run past the keep. Didn't mirror react. If he moved the knights straight away, I think the damage is pretty negligible, and you get to take out the full cavalry battalion of the English. Instead, Antoxa gets a great raid in here, and he's still actually killing more villagers off. Even with the textiles, it doesn't matter. Dive in a little bit too late from Viper. He could sneak in on the east side here through the tree line. Can't approach the direct front, though. The White Tower is going to be a frustration. I think one detail that gets kind of overlooked with the White Tower is... I actually don't mind it when you've already got your TCs, right? Because we were talking about this yesterday, that the logic is a town center costs you 700 resources, a keep costs you 800. And also, keep costs you 800 of... It not only costs you more resources than a town center, it costs you more of the rarer resource on the map. So actually, White Tower isn't that bad if you need a keep, because dropping one gives you the network of citadels access, right? Because you need a keep to get that attack speed buff upgrade. And then it also allows you to posture at the beginning of an age up. Another cool detail, actually, is this. You may notice the out of 20. Usually keeps a 15, but the White Tower allows you to garrison an extra 5. With the English especially, that's pretty effective due to the extra arrow fire. So I actually don't mind the White Tower. I think we quite often turn our nose up at it and say, oh, it's a terrible choice. And sure, in an ideal world, if you can get away with the extra greed, great. But if any part of your game plan involves a quick castle at the beginning of Castle Age, I actually think White Tower might be the better choice now. Archers at least being cleaned up on the east side. Looks like Viper's going to be blocked out. The Sacred Site caps. But as soon as Antoxa makes it to Castle Age, Viper is going to make his way to Imp. Man, this is a tough one. Ultimate is pointing out that the English keeps are production buildings as well. Yep, I've harped on about this a lot in the past. But I don't think that's a point of consideration in the choice to go White Tower versus Keep. Because, like, the point is the difference between, like, if I need a Keep, if I need it to get network citadels, if I need this for different reasons, you want to compare directly, what does the White Tower do different than the Keep? Well, both the Keep and the White Tower function as production buildings, so you don't get any extra boon there. By the way, speaking of production buildings, I think Antoxa made a mistake here, he forgot. I see this so frequently with English players because they never actually use their castles as production buildings. He built this White Tower, he could have used that to get the initial treb out. Instead, he built a siege workshop and he spent an extra 300 wood. And now he's using the White Tower as stables. Definitely need a lot more stable units. Trying to punish Viper for making his tech up like this. A good choice if you can get in, considering Viper hasn't got the biggest standing army. However, it looks like he wants to go round on the west side and Oh, Viper, this is way too ambitious. You need to Stonewall back here. Stonewall back here! Oh. Mistakes made, Viper. Mistakes have definitely been made. Unless Intoxer isn't reacting. Quick wall, quick wall. He can't get it. It's going to be torched down. Missing opportunity there. Viper gets a bit too gluttonous. If he just set up a Stonewall in this choke point, he would have been safe. But now he has to guard his western flank. It's going to be a flood through. Now, not the end of the world for Viper. Yeah, he's probably going to lose the secondary TC, but he does have to pass the Swabia, so that's already added 3 extra TCs into his production. It does mean all these villagers that are exposed on this side are probably going to be going down dead. Knights and Men-at-Arms raiding across, but probably too late here. Relic has been picked up by Antox on the backside, so at least get a little bit of gold trickle going his way. And Antox just got baited into a fight. Now, it is a fight he should be able to win here, but it means the TC's going to get to survive for longer. And the wall-in's going to complete, so Viper will be able to keep him out long term. In fact, Viper is getting a decent fight considering the numbers. This is the mistake that Antoxa made. He built heavily armored units against the HRE Men-at-Arms, and at the end of this battle, it doesn't really look like Antoxa came out as far ahead as he maybe should have. He will still clean up, sure. He still has a sizable force to continue the siege, sure. But if you consider the numbers he brought to this fight, if you think about these kind of like this scaling in terms of damage as we usually see, the HRE units were just trading about 50% more effectively than the English ones. There's a pretty big difference, right? Because he went for the two-handed Men-at-Arms. Like, you could just see, he's doing 17 base damage plus an extra 6 against heavy units. Compare that on the other side. These Men-at-Arms are doing, what was it? Was it 13 damage? No, it's 14, I think, plus 1. Sorry, 12 plus 1. What am I about? 14 plus 1. He could dream. Easily sneaking in on different locations, though. Credit to him, Antoxa. Is proving quite the nuisance for Viper. Viper also now running out of food. And actually, I'm kind of surprised. Antoxa getting on this backside is pretty effective. I thought he was tunnel visioning the TC, but he wasn't. He's all over the place. And as a result of that, Viper, despite the fact he has the pass of Swabia, hasn't really dealt with the deficit in terms of villager count. He's still very far behind. And it means Antoxa is now getting an opportunity to catch up. Imperial Age is on the way. It is going to be the Wingard Pass. No forced pressure to build a Berkshire here. And that means he's going to get the cheap, efficient armies long term. All of a sudden, Viper's going to be on the clock here. He still hasn't even cleaned up the last of the MAA. Second wave is going to fail to commit due to the stone water. Oh, no! Wait, no, he's fine. Psych. Wait, should he be fine? No, it's just you get on the walls. Actually, that always baits me. Why can't you go through the wall? I guess if your opponent locks the gate, right? But I don't think he locked it. I'm personally of the opinion that if the gate's the wrong way, you should 100% be able to go through. I'm also of the opinion if you get up on someone's stone wall and you go over to their gate, you should be able to open and close their gate. We're talking Stronghold. I don't get how Stronghold, which came out in, I think, 1999, got it more right on how... Well, actually, Strong Crusaders introduced it, so I think 2001. How is that game that came out 20 years before this one got stone walls more right than this game? It's actually kind of weird when you think about it for even like more than 20 seconds, right? Because honestly, I never feel like these mistaken gates are punished to the extreme that they should be, right? I can't be the only one feeling that. Like, the amount of times you'll see someone set up a gate wrong, and it just becomes a whoop-de frickin' doodah. Like, this should have been a critical error that really hurt him. And Toxa should have been in with his second wave of MAA onto the farms. In a time, by the way, when Viper had no food. But it didn't happen. And now, because it didn't happen, I mean, Viper's going to get a chance to escalate. And Toxa is also now only going for the network of citadels. Isn't ready just yet for a defensive fight. Has at least got the crossbows to hold back the wave of men-at-arms coming in. A good choice here. Viper is prepping a 1-2 punch here. MAA plus Horseman. Also prepping for Spearman switchover with the Riveted Chainmail. Great choice here. Not taken that often by the HRE, but actually incredibly effective. It makes them probably the third most effective Spearman in the game, behind the English ones due to attack speed aura, which is situational, and then of course the Abbases with their phalanx. So, someone pointing out, wait, oh my god, they're cheating. Someone pointing out that Siege Tower should be a free tech and cost almost nothing to build. Yeah, but that still doesn't solve the issue that they do nothing. Like, fundamentally, that does not solve the problem of Siege Towers, which is that they are terrible. I recall someone having a cute idea that Siege Towers should be able to embed themselves into a tower, and then they get, like, deleted and they take control of a tower. Not sure if I'm the biggest fan of that. I think that's a bit too much. They should be almost unkillable from range fire, though. It's actually absurd how quickly they can even die to range fire sometimes. Like, if you want to use a tanky siege unit, a ram is more effective than a siege tower, weirdly enough. Corvin being dove. Looks like Viper forgot to keep peeling it back. Although, luckily for him, Antoxa didn't notice. He's attacking the wrong thing. Okay, that hurts. I mean, you just thrown away, what, 10 men-arms? Okay, he does at least get the final strike. He probably shouldn't have got that, but Viper whoopsie-daisied it a little bit. I think we've reached stalemate point, and Toxa still has 18 men-at-arms stuck back here that do nothing. And he just deletes them. Now, admittedly, he could have burnt through the southern wall, but that would have taken him so long to get around. He's probably made the right choice here. Just think how much you could do with that 18 pop cap at home. Especially considering he is pop cap locked. Viper's such a cheeky son of a gun with that, though. Viper also not really walling himself secure here. Just palisades. Really needs to get in the stone walls on this central flank point. No stone walls from Antox in the center, though. Does mean that Viper can keep sneaking in like this. Takes him a long time to get the backside, though, and he needs to address this backside because that's what's keeping Antoxa competitive in this game. That's what's keeping him alive. The issue that you're going to run into as the HRE is you're meant to boom quicker, right? You're meant to reach your tech timings faster. You're meant to have great income off of both the Holy Inspiration as well as the passive gold trickle. The problem, however, is as you get later into this game, the English really are the true kings of the late game. Like, you have to keep in mind that these farms become incredibly competitive, even with your Holy Inspiration, because you get an increased 30% gathering rate on food. Then they're gathering gold as well alongside this. These type of things kind of offset the edge the HRE have. It allows the English economy to become more efficient per population investment than the HRE. And then after that, you have to consider attack speed, right? Not only is the English at that point leveled out the eco playing field, but then they have the attack speed aura, which actually offsets pretty much everything you're trying to do. Like, the men-at-arms battle is still slightly favored towards the HRE, right? Because the extra heavy damage on the mace. But the attack speed aura plus the extra armor from Armorclad actually closes the gap pretty effectively. I'd say it's maybe a 20% efficiency boost still for the HRE overall compared to 2. But it closes the gap, and then in conjunction with it, it levels up every other unit with the attack speed. Right? Crossbows, trebuchets, all these things do so much work. And if that eco wasn't good enough in this late game, come back to those trebuchets, the Wingard Palace is going to start spamming out these super cheap trebs. Trebs that can also be used as mini mangonels due to shattering projectiles. Shattering projectiles, which should be on the way soon for Antoxa. I think once he goes up to about 5 or 6, that's when you want to pick it up. A great pickup here from Antoxa. He goes to the Elite Horseman, makes his way to the backside of the base, and Viper now just scrambling to put out fires, all because he never walled, he never condensed this towards the keep in the center. His flank points are still very much open. He's finally going to address it with the keep on the north side, but still, this shouldn't have happened in the first place. This shouldn't have been allowed for Antoxa. But great pick by him to actually wrap like that. Hand cannoneers are unguarded here, though, so Antoxa jumping the gun a little. Needs to recalibrate his military. His eco may be a little bit too big for this. In fact, yeah, Viper is getting better fights. You can see, despite the fact that his eco is down by about 50, his military count is clearly higher. And it feels like part of this is Antoxa's baiting himself into static point defenses that have cannonball emplacements. You can't be doing this. The Trebs need to address these first, and you should be able to reach 4 to 5 Trebs at a decent pace, and then E-repairs shouldn't do enough. But instead, you missed the trick, and now you might be in a bit of a pickle. Horseman going to wrap in. Culverins trade out on the trebuchets. Got a little bit too close. Horseman wave not able to take out the additional, but still blocks him out, pushes him back, and now bombards by Antoxa. An intriguing choice, not one typically made here. Culverins do snipe out another Treb and will make their way back. And Cannoneers will at least be able to take out one, but might struggle to get the second one here. In fact, it looks like the other one is going to survive. The front line a little bit too strong for Viper as well, with Spearman coming out also. This is where it's going to get a bit dicey, I think, for Antoxa to park here anymore. He still doesn't have the siege to get through these buildings, yet he keeps committing hand cannoneers underneath them. Not an ideal choice. Now he's going to be swarmed. Viper getting closer to PopCap than he was before. Meanwhile, Antoxa not really getting any additional impact out of his current composition. Trebuchet count, I think, is still at 1. If this doesn't escalate in the next 2 to 3 minutes, I think he's going to miss his timing entirely. I'm actually quite concerned for Antoxa and the way he's fighting, especially if Viper is able to reach PopCap. Viper is doing all this from a situation where his economy, in theory, shouldn't be good enough to afford all premium unit choices he could be looking towards. Yet he's still holding. It's the keep, man. It's the keep at all times. It's just still not answered. One Treb still. Farm count is escalating still, but Viper is getting very competitive with his own. Mr. Snake, man, what's it going to be next? It looks like he's going into chem, so we might see a switch into hand cannoneers for him as well. Not sure if it's the ideal choice to make here. I'd actually argue that Langsnet could be better, just because of how quickly they'll gap close on hand cannoneers. Alternatively, you just keep pushing men-at-arms and spears, because I think it does get you into the base slowly but surely. And every time you crawl closer, these bombards can start to open fire on the infrastructure. One issue for Antoxa, of course, is when you set up so many farms, the English in a condensed fashion to be efficient the way you do, you run out of production space. And I think this is a key issue for Antoxa in the way that he played this game. When Viper got mid-map control, Antoxa didn't really do anything to take that back and away. And it means that Viper has the more efficient space to build production. Look at all these military buildings. The way they're laid about. And the way he's freeing up more space for them. Now compare it to Antoxa, and you can see how he's been forced to kind of negotiate his way through room. There's not much of it. And the alternative is, yeah, you can build on the flank, but that's going to put you further away from the battle. Which means your pop cap isn't actually being leveraged. It's just idling. Flash comes in again. Culverins and Bombards trading out. Not enough cavalry making it around. It's just going to be another fight that Antoxa loses, all because of these static point defenses. Treb count is at least up to 3, but once he loses this fight, the Culverin can just wheel in to snipe out trebuchets again. I think Antoxa's kind of stuck himself in a rut here. The only upside for him is that outpost wasn't E-repaired, but ultimately, these fights are slowly going against him. I mean, you can see this PopCap lead has shrunk tremendously. And I think both sides do have military academies, so you can't even give a one-up one way or the other there. In fact, if I look at the blacksmiths, he's actually behind on 1-2 techs. Balanced projectiles don't matter too much for hand cannoneers because they hit so hard. It's not a big percentile increase, but every little probably would help you, and I feel like you need every little you can get. I also want you guys to consider the cost of these armies. Like, one side is building horsemen, men-at-arms, which is basically just food. Food is infinite. Gold is infinite between these two in a way, but not to the same extent. Like, it's not going to last as long. Like, you can see the difference in food compared to gold, right? And Antoxa has, this is all the gold, the perma gold he's getting. Like, he can only get 1,400 compared to almost 5,000 food from his farms. So your issue isn't affording food units, your issue is actually affording gold units. It's why every time he builds a hand cannoneer army and it dies so quickly, I grimace, because it's just going to be more and more difficult to replace down the line. speaking of those hand cannoneers, looks like Viper isn't going to dive the base. Why would he? He's getting close to pop cap for the first time in a long time. He's also now adding in his own hand cannoneers, so he did opt for that choice in the end. A little bit surprised by this. I felt like Horseman would have been a better option for Viper to engage with. Logic behind the Horseman is you just dive to the back of the base, you clean up loads of villages, and there's not much your opponent can do. And, speaking of which... Oh, he got baited. Two of these guys are actually going to kill a lot. They hit for 16 damage each, folks. That damage is also going to add up because it's not just a farm that's not gathering anymore. It's also a gold source that's not gathering anymore. Viper. Again, just trying to bait out. I love this detail from him. He goes in range to auto-aggro the troops out, and Antoxa also then gets forced to commit the whole army. He then pulls back towards a keep and takes heavy damage. It's pretty crafty. Still, though, these raids, I mean, he's finally noticed it. He's turning around to address them, but it shut down 2 farm clusters, which is actually pretty substantial. That's going to be, what, 600 food missing for Antoxa, and about 100 extra gold income missing. He's clawing it back. It's kind of rough to watch this from Antoxa, having the better economy for a long time, having the late game theoretically on your side, but not optimizing for your trebuchet mass earlier on, I think, hurt him. Not getting rid of this keep hurt him. Not having production space, because if this keep goes down, Antoxa could drop a forward keep, and then he has extra room for 6, 7, 8 more production buildings. Instead, you're never getting enough troops out into the field quick enough. I think this is where things are going to start to get a little bit uncomfortable for him. Men-at-Arms are forcing the clashes again. Horseman raid is at least coming in towards the Culverins, so can at least snipe those out. Or can he? I mean, he'll get maybe 1. I don't think he gets more than 1, though. Well, unless they turn around like this. So you just dove all this Horseman, you killed 1 Culverin, you lost all your hand cannoneers in the meantime. You did at least clean up the Men-at-Arms, but once again, I could not emphasize this enough. Gold is the problem for both sides long term because of the compositions they're trying to make. Hand cannoneers are coming out on both sides. The difference, however, is that Viper isn't losing the hand cannoneers. They're always living. The keep finally goes down, but I don't think it's good enough anymore for Antoxa. Viper is starting to gain some serious ground here. He's still not pop-capped, Evo is the more impressive part. Clash underneath the aura is going to benefit Antoxa as he tries to reproduce the hand cannoneer line, but it's just too many. And Viper, getting ambitious, tries to go for a wall log play, decides against it when he sees the frontline falls. Viper, where's the next wave? He hasn't actually escalated the hand cannoneer count that much. He's also throwing away the Culverins. Has Antoxa done this? No way. English attack speed. I mean, that's all I can say to this. English attack speed is something else. It looked like Viper had the right amount of hand cannoneers to clean this up, but he seems to be missing Men-at-Arms and Horseman production. He can't actually afford it. Oh my god, never doubt the English war machine. Now, that being said, Antoxa definitely could have got to this situation a lot more comfortably. But he's there now. He's finally done it. The keeps are down. The fort outposts are destroyed. The attack speed aura is starting to crawl up for Antoxa. He's also getting more room for production. And Viper is nowhere near pop cap anymore. He missed a trick here. And now he might miss his economy eternally when they're all dead. That's going to be a flood through. Horse are going to start to breach to the backside to look for anything they can find. Hand cannoneers are going to keep pushing in. Viper now on the ropes, despite the fact that it looked like he may have actually had the right approach to this. Antoxa adjusted and done so beautifully. With an unharassed economy this whole time, Antoxa has been unfazed by Viper's posturing. Because Viper was never able to get back behind the base and do serious damage to the economy of the English. It means that Viper is going to be the one losing out here. Well played. Antoxa just showing you the power of the English, why they're so popular in Altai. Viper, some interesting ideas here, but a few tricks missing. No way getting through this infrastructure, I think, is what cost him. I mentioned that Antoxa didn't have space to build infrastructure, and he definitely wasn't gaining ground for a long time. But the same time Viper wasn't either, because he was never able to shrink the production speed of the English at this stage of the game. I think a criminal mistake here was 0 trebs. 1 or 2 trebs could have slowly blitzed these buildings, and if he'd done that, and Toxa slowly fails to maintain pop cap. But instead, the only one failing to maintain pop cap in this game is Viper. This is done. Flood through will commence. There's no way for him to easily defend. You can see him trying to set up defensive keeps behind this, but there's no way back now. I mean, your military, your eco, everything's shrinking. And Toxa, rank, what was it, 158 for the world? Doesn't stop him from taking out the Snake Man. Definitely a matchup at this point in the game that we favoured the English, but still, you got to give credit where credit is due. Although it took him longer than maybe it would take some of our top 10s to make this pivot with the English. He doesn't give up. He understands when he's going to be strongest, and he commits with conviction to that late game.